Yes, it's fine now.
Oh, okay.
It's fine now. People are complaining. T, we can't see you. We can't see you.
Hey, my apologies.
Why
My
are you running
apologies,
away?
everybody.
Eh? Why are you running away, Timberland?
Hey, bro, like technology never liked us.
First thing you
I
run
don't
from
know.
Facebook, now you're running away here. Eh?
I don't know. Maybe it's the 5G, man. Eh?
Okay. Man, thank you for joining us and thank you for being patient. I don't know. Technology just is failing us today. It never loved us. But anyway, we're going to do this regardless.
Certainly so.
Yeah. I've been getting a lot of questions through the foundation. But then before we go there, can you please introduce yourself to those who don't know you and what do you do and everything?
Oh, okay. My name is Tembelani Lepoto, clinical psychologist in private practice. And I've been practicing for what? It's been about 6 years now.
Yeah, we are late. Yes, we are late. We are late. Okay. Well, I wanted us to discuss a few things around the whole therapy thing. I mean, you are a clinical psychologist, right?
Sure.
So this is your line of field, yes. And I think you're going to have a huge inside information on how the whole thing works and how is it really beneficial for people, especially the Black community, which they seem to shy away from. And maybe you can help us and clarify a few things that might actually help more people to finally start using such services for their own wellness or healing journey.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically what we're trying to discuss today is therapy among the Black community, right? And the benefits basically of therapy and why most men still tend to shy away from the idea. But then maybe you can start by telling us like what is therapy and how does it help?
Okay. Thanks a lot, Bongs, for this platform of exposure. But I guess necessarily not just for me.
Yes.
But to speak to the masses out there,
yes, definitely.
Informing them about mental health and its significance, in the society that we live in. So basically, let me just start by defining what's mental health.
Yeah.
So mental health is actually a person's condition with regards to their psychological or emotional state or well-being, Yeah. So one can then safely agree and say mental health is very significant, to everyone within the society. Mm-hmm. And one would then move to the idea of elaborating further on factors on how does psychopathology emanate,
Yeah.
And I'll just tap into just two theoretical backgrounds, the psychobiological model and the social model,
Yeah.
Whereby when we look into the biological factors, we're looking at inherent or genetic makeup that one possesses. We're looking at chemical imbalances that cause psychopathology. So these are things that no one has no control of. These are rather natural. These are rather natural.
No, don't mind me. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm trying to tell people that they need to come to Instagram now. So yes. Oh. Continue.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. Yeah. So and then we look at social issues, or social factors, that causes psychopathology, and these are your social stressors,
Okay, remember, the people that we're talking to or addressing here, they don't really understand the big words. So
I'll try to simplify.
You need to simplify. I'm also lost there. I'm thinking, what? So yeah, sure. just use simple.
I'll try to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So when we talk about social stresses, we're looking at our day-to-day, stressors.
Yeah.
It could be like marital issues, like work-related stuff,
Okay.
Financial issues, the lockdown itself, which is definitely gonna expose so many people within our societies, to mental health issues, so that as the Black nation, we still lack insight, in terms of mental health, and its benefits, taking care of our mental health and all that.
But what are the benefits, though? What are the benefits?
The benefits, Bongs. I think I was going to tap into that, but just to answer that, the benefits are to eradicate all the not so well behaviors, that people then present with. I think I'll elaborate more on that just shortly.
Okay.
So there's still an issue of avoidance, of stigmatization, which is why most people then
definitely,
which is why most people shy away, from consulting with health practitioners or mental health practitioners.
Well, I have a question for you. So,
sure.
A lot of men, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of men haven't been told how to process and talk about their emotional experiences, which often lead to isolation, anger, resentment, and stuff like that. So in such cases, how do you encourage them to open up?
Sure. Very interestingly, that I was about to tap into that aspect as well, for the main purpose of this discussion. And we look at Black men. I suppose the significant issue here is exposing them, allowing them to be exposed to a corrected emotional experience. And what do I mean by saying that? Let's rather take it back a little bit, and look at issues of why men do not consult. We look at issues such as socialization.
Yes.
Where men were never taught, how to express their emotions. They were never allowed to tap into their psychological aspects of life. And are we still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So this speaks to issues of masculinity, where the society has constructed, masculinity in a very not so favorable light. If a man has issues, they're not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to talk about what's bothering them. And this is actually the disadvantage of that is actually we're creating a society of men who are embedded with so much within themselves.
Yes.
That they end up struggling to process things in a more rather emotional and sensible way, which then leads to the various things that we see, outbreaks in the society, such as your gender-based violences.
Definitely. Yeah. So basically what you're saying, patriarchy has played a major role in molding most of us in becoming what we are right now. And this also now starting to affect certain relationships or people, how they integrate into society. As we can see, most of them probably it's pride, shamed, and maybe the fear of being condemned if they come out and say, okay, I have a problem with this mental illness or issue.
Exactly. I mean, a typical example, Bongs. We as men have our own egos, centered around certain things.
Yes.
It's typically difficult for a man, to just park at the filling station and ask for directions to somewhere. We always want to prove that we know so much, we are in possession of so much and all that.
Now you
can imagine.
I have to be in charge.
Exactly. Now you can imagine. The issue around like mental illness. How difficult it is, for a man to say, "Hey, I need help. I'm sinking." I need your help. Yeah. So it's definitely a serious issue how socialization has played part. In terms of who we have become. The family construct itself. What kind of a family setup you come from? Do they facilitate, a holding environment, for young boys as they grow up, to be in touch of with themselves, their emotional side, and believing in their internal emotional lives, So it's very serious that such issues are not addressed at a younger age because they have a way of coming out at a later stage.
Yeah, so Jose is saying we need to rewrite the model of families, the masculinity, the mental health, and the core of family needs. It needs to be revisited. Basically, I think you've already touched on that point. Like most of us, we're actually coming from the patriarchy upbringing, where a man is supposed to be strong, a man is supposed to be independent, a man is not supposed to show any weaknesses. But then, how do we integrate as society and then remove the stigma, which we all know there's a huge stigma attached to mental illness? The moment someone says, I'm not okay, people start thinking that you're going to be going out on the street and picking up papers, or you're going to walk around naked and stuff like that, which is not true. Then how do we move forward as society in terms of removing stigma that is attached to mental health so that at least more people come forward and seek help?
Oh, that's a great question, Bongs, because I think between you and I and our viewers, I suppose we are one step ahead. We are aware of such issues such as like mental health and mental illness.
Yes.
So now the question is, how do we then move on?
Yeah.
One, I think it will take stakeholders such as mental health practitioners, psychoeducating the society, through such platforms, as this one that you created, which we are very thankful of you for.
We'll get to that later.
Psychoeducating the society, about mental health, mental illnesses, signs and symptoms of different mental disorders, because we still see different people moving around, presenting with symptoms, and yet they do not know what it is, and yet it's defined, in a certain way. Whereas, like, if they were to sort out for psychological intervention or psychiatric intervention, things could be sorted out. We need to conscientize and sensitize, like, our fellow brothers, out there, that like it's actually good and it's actually fine to actually talk to someone.
It's okay. You are allowed. You are allowed.
We do not live in isolation.
No.
We definitely need support systems around us for all of us to function.
Yes.
I always say when I'm in therapy, particularly with men,
Yeah.
that I always use like the ideology of human beings being the dustbin,
Yeah.
and when life throws all the rubbish inside of you, which is like our day-to-day social stresses and all that, at some point in time, someone needs to offload, that bin, so that it's clean and hygienic and all that. But if no one empties that bin and life keeps on throwing the rubbish inside, before you know it, all the rubbish is going to spill out. And everything around it won't look good. It won't be hygienic. There'll probably be a bad smell around it.
Yes.
Which is what happens to most of us when we do not actually allow ourselves to take things out, to empty that bin.
Yes.
So the process of emptying is the psychotherapy part, the talking to a friend, a family member, a confidant, and so forth.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. And just to add on that point before we move to the next one, I mean, you're right. I mean, most of us, we keep our emotions bottled inside. And by the time it erupts, usually it comes out as anger or violence, which is probably another reason why most men, they still, I don't know, in this terrain of gender-based violence. Some of them, maybe it could be possible that they just don't know how to communicate their emotions in the right way. And this whole thing of keeping their emotions bottled, which we're not saying we're condoning it. Basically, it's not right, and we need to change the pattern. But now I need to understand something. Like, this is my next question. Like, most men, right? They must be comfortable enough. Yeah. They must be comfortable enough to let someone know that they need help, right? But at the same time, most of us, we carry all this facade that I've got it all together. I'm not really suffering. I mean, I don't need anyone. Like, how do you then deal? Sorry. I was still trying to say, most men, they need to be comfortable, right? Enough to let someone, like, know that they need help. And most of us, we carry this facade that I've got it all together. I know what I'm doing. I'm in charge. Basically, I don't need anyone to tell me. Then how do you help such individuals who struggle with letting themselves be in a position of being vulnerable? I can understand. Your help, or you also intervene when someone is in a position of letting go. But then what if they struggle with the whole thing of being in a vulnerable position?
If I get your question clearly, Bongs, are we looking into when they have taken the first step of consulting, or when they are just in denial and avoid?
Let's just speak in general, right? But then also I want to drive you to the point that, okay, we have someone, right? They know they have an issue. Issue. But because of the facade that they've built and the reputation that they hold in society, they're still finding it hard to actually get into your office space and let go and be vulnerable. How do you then tap in terms of helping them come out more better and healed?
Okay, now I get you. I think it actually speaks to the point that I made earlier on. Before one actually decides that I have a problem.
Yes.
2, what do I do with this problem? I need to consult. Before they get to that point, I suppose what needs to happen is the bigger role is left in our hands. The psychoeducation part.
Yes.
Sensitizing and conscientizing individuals that there are such services. And making them aware that, consulting with a psychologist or psychiatrist doesn't actually necessarily mean that you've lost it. It simply
that's a good
means
point.
That's
a good point. I want you to repeat it. Please repeat it for us and for those who didn't Like, please just repeat that line.
Sure. Consulting with mental health practitioners,
Yes.
Such as a psychologist or a psychiatrist, does not necessarily mean that you've lost it in your
Yeah.
you know? It simply means that, like, you are dealing with issues just like any other person, but I guess because of we are different, in terms of stress tolerance, you are failing to cope with the stresses, and as a result, it's affecting your functionality, as far as your physiology is concerned and all that. So I think as soon as we start having such talks, with men all over, allowing them to understand that, like, talking to someone doesn't necessarily make you less of a man, or doesn't necessarily imply that you are weak. It actually means that you are a greater man. It actually means that you are bigger than the situation. Being able to take the bull by its horn and face the situation. As opposed to, like, just sweeping the issues under the carpet and thinking that everything is fine. So I think the communications we're supposed to have are centered around psycho-educating the men, making them aware of such services, and the comforting space around them, So I guess that will actually open a platform to say, let me consider consulting with
consulting. And just to add to your point, I mean, another thing that we need to familiarize ourselves with is that you going through depression or anxiety, sometimes it's not really about somebody's weakness or not finding it hard to actually cope with life. Sometimes it's genetic. Right?
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm wrong here. Sometimes it's genetic, and sometimes the social or environmental circumstances, they play a huge role in how someone integrates into society. Because sometimes you find that maybe your grandfather was suffering from depression, and suddenly now you are also suffering from depression, and you don't even know why, because your life is supposed to be like flowing. But suddenly you're just finding it hard to cope with certain level. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this statement, but I stand to be corrected that sometimes genetic and environmental factors, they also affect how one actually cope with a level of stress.
Definitely, Bongs. In the beginning of the discussion, I spoke about the two models, the social and the biological, where I spoke about the genetical makeup.
Yeah.
For some people, unfortunately, they are born with that dormant gene, which is there for whatever mental condition,
So they can't
actually. So when I say a dormant gene, like it's actually idling there, It's waiting for a social stressor to come and trigger it, and then you react.
And then
Yeah. So it's very true what you say. For some people, unfortunately, it's not because, like, they are weak and whatnot, It's just a matter of their genetical predisposition, the genetical makeup, that actually exposes them to mental health, which is then why it's very important, to understand the fundamentals and the essential part of consulting with your psychiatrist, psychologist, so that they give you your psychopharmacological treatment, that will then stabilize the will stabilize the chemical imbalances that you're currently presenting with. This goes deeper into talking to your your biological makeup, then talking your neurotransmitters and whatnot. That's deeper stuff as far as neuropsychology is concerned.
Again, communication and actually being open to share things, because I mean, like right now you just chat another point that if one maybe is suffering from stress and they're not finding, or they're just not understanding why they're actually feeling a certain way, it would be advisable to actually go back and check it. Do I have a family history and stuff like that? But then again, we know that patriarchy has made it hard for most of us to communicate. Our fathers, they don't want to talk about anything.
Exactly.
Our grandparents, they might be a bit tolerant, but it is very hard to actually say, okay, Dad, did you ever had a problem with stress? Because they'll be telling you, I don't know what is that. What is stress? Just go out there, you're going to be fine. And now suddenly the information is lost because we were never taught how to love, how to be kind, and basically how to sit down and address like crucial issues.
Definitely. When you're talking about looking back into one's family history,
Yes.
as far as mental health is concerned, I'm actually taken back to a joke that one of our late professors, who was actually the president of the SAISA, the Psychology Society, actually made one other time in class. So he actually said, for those who would love to have kids and get married one day, it's very advisable that, like, before you actually even commit to anyone, check back, the family history.
Check what you're getting yourself into.
You could be producing offspring, which are susceptible to mental illnesses, without you knowing,
Yes.
And it got me thinking. It got me sitting down and, tracing back, my family, as far as mental health illness is concerned, So it sort of like awakens you at the same time. It sort of like works on your emotions somehow, when you start recognizing certain things that, like, oh, so and so behaved like this, so and so, So it sort of like makes you to be very skeptical in terms of like, who are you? What's your makeup? What kind of a person will you be in the future and all that?
Yeah.
So all these things actually work hand in hand, one way or the other. They do definitely communicate with each other.
Yes. Okay. This brings me to the next point. Earlier on, you spoke about consulting, right? So we have to be honest, though. The crucial factor is that therapy is not cheap. Therapy is not cheap, and this seriously might actually eliminate a lot of individuals who really need it, especially right now with the whole financial instability. So moving forward as a country, how do we make such services easily accessible?
Check. For some of us who are in private, the unfortunate part is that
okay, no, it's fine. Just let it out there so that people will know,
Sure. The unfortunate part is that we do not come very cheap, the services that we provide. But however, for those who have medical aids, they are able to utilize their medical aids for such services. Yes. They do cater for such services.
Yeah.
And for those who can actually pay cash, they're still welcome.
Okay. But now let's talk about the people who are actually,
Yeah, we know what the bracket.
We know the bracket of medical aid and stuff. Who we know for a fact right now they are under enormous pressure. Mm-hmm. And they will probably like to speak to someone or talk to anyone. Does government facilities have any services that they can assist such individuals, or how do they go about basically? Like, what is out there? What is available for them?
Government facilities do cater for such as well. They do cater for such. If I am not mistaken, I think it's for free. If not, there's probably a small percentage, I think it's just for administrative purposes, opening your file and whatnot, which could probably be like about not more than 50 rands, I think,
Okay.
But in terms of the actual services, your consultations, you definitely do not have to pay for that. So there are NGOs,
Yeah, we are here.
Such as Gabon's Dima.
We need to help out where we can. We need to help out where we can.
Yeah, and I suppose there are, worst case scenarios, is that with our public sector, we all know that like there's pressure or an issue of waiting lists and whatnot,
Yeah.
And question is what then happens like when someone is so suicidal and they have to wait for an appointment for August or September because now the diary
There's a backlog.
There's a backlog. Thanks for that. And you find people who are generous enough within the private sector as well, who are willing to do pro bono work as well, So I suppose it's worth trying. It's worth knocking at the door and checking. I know I've done a couple of pro bono cases before. Still willing.
And we are sending some to you very soon.
Still willing to do that.
We are sending some very soon towards it directly. Okay.
More than willing to help. Yeah.
Just to wrap this up, so like, what would be your advice to a guy that is sitting out there, confused, and they acknowledge the fact that there is something wrong, right? Sorry, they acknowledge that there's something wrong and they are not coping, but they are very skeptical of the whole therapy thing and stuff. Look, so what would be your advice to that person or that individual in terms of moving forward with life and getting the best healing process?
My advice would actually be one, allowing themselves to talk.
Yeah.
It may not necessarily have to be within a therapeutic space.
Yes.
Like in my rooms or something.
Yeah.
Or any other practitioner's rooms. But just having a confidant, a friend, a family member that you can always talk to. It actually helps so much. It takes. I usually say how one feels, is not as a result of what they are going through, but simply because of their interpretation of what they are going through.
Yeah.
So if you do not talk, you actually enclosed into your own definition of what you perceive of the world. But if you talk and you allow yourself to engage with other people and try to allow other people to help you see the world from a different magnifying glass, it actually gives you a better perspective in terms of what you're going through and redefining what you are actually going through, which definitely ultimately then speaks to how you feel, at the ultimate end. So talking, Bongs, is very essential. It's part of the essential services. It's part of the essential practices, rather. As far as mental health is concerned. So basically, my advice would solely stick to that. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with that. We are all humans. We are all emotional species. We are all emotional beings. We have emotions, So there's no point in behaving and acting as if you do not have emotions and you're keeping everything inside, Just let it out. Reach out a hand, to someone who's willing to help.
Yeah. And like, mental health has no color. Black, white, pink, orange, and any other color in between. It affects both men and women. And you said there's power in being vulnerable. I think men, they just need to man up right now in a different way. Instead of you thinking that you are a superhero, you are allowed to be vulnerable. And you need to surround yourself with people that are actually going to add value in your life, like not monetary, but then in other form, like spiritual, and build you from inside out.
I love the fact that you're bringing the spiritual concept in it. You know, as individuals, we somehow, I suppose, for most of us, we believe that like we exist because of a certain supernatural power or force. You know,
Yes.
I think it's always important. You know, which is what I always do with my sessions as well. You know, try to encompass a holistic approach. You know, looking at one's psycho-spiritual aspect, you know, of living. Understanding that, like, for certain struggles that we go through, you know, it doesn't hurt to have a support system, like, you know, your home cells and whatnot, you know, where you are actually given the platform to tap into the spiritual and the emotional support as well. You know, so support groups from different places is very essential. You know, there's no limit to it. There's no limit to it.
No, I like that. I like the point that you just raised now. Actually, I wanted to close this, but then now I'm thinking, no, let's take this one up, because you just raised something that is actually nice to look at someone holistically. And in doing that, most people have been saying they're finding it hard to go to therapy because they feel like they don't understand their social background. And then it then becomes harder for one to literally open up and be vulnerable if a person sitting in front of them doesn't even understand the struggle that they've been through. So with you, you're saying you actually kind of tackle the whole thing in a holistical way, which I think it's going to give more people confidence to actually come through and just be themselves.
Be themselves. True. I think you know, adding on that in closure, we've seen over the years, you know, like how the difference in terms of economic differences or economic status differences, you know, racial differences and all those other differences that we have as individuals have a hindrance in terms of therapy itself. You know, I think it's always important for people to consult with someone that they feel they are comfortable with and can resonate with who they are. Because it's sort of like gives them a safer platform, you know, that will allow the therapist to empathize easily with them, you know, understanding their situation, yet knowing that it's not about them but about the patient. But in some situations where, you know, certain therapists share a different view as compared to the patient, it always, we've always seen it coming across, you know, that it can always be a hindering process in terms of therapy, where our different views, the patient and the doctor, you know, clash, and one then now feels unsafe, you know, because now they're being stigmatized or violated by the doctor themselves, you know? So one needs to be comfortable in that space, you know. If you feel that like there's an element of discomfort, you know, that you're sensing from your doctor, it's always safe, like, I mean, to go try someone else. Because at the end of the day, it's about you and your well-being.
Okay. Mental health is important as your physical health. And we are saying no more to suicides, no more to gender-based violence. So let's try and eliminate all these elements by opening up. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a close friend, a close family member, but you need to find someone to offload with. And it's very crucial for your well-being and a healthy mindset, right?
Definitely.
Timbelani, thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for the information, which I'm hopefully someone out there, they will find it very useful and start becoming better men, because we need to change. We need to change from the ways how our forefathers used to operate and how they used to live. I mean, we're living in a modern world now, and obviously there's so much stress triggers and everything. There's so much pressure, and we need to adjust and find new ways of integrating. Your time was was well appreciated. I don't want to lie, and thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Bongs, and apologies.